Hi, welcome to journalism class. My name is Teacher Rhea. Looking at a news article written by journalists doesn't seem like it is complicated to write at all. For all we know, it's just answering the basic WH questions. What, who, when, where, why, and how. And then when you suddenly ask to write your own news article, you realize that you are unsure where to start or how to start. The basic news story is told upside down. Another term for that is inverted pyramid. That is for the print story called hard news. Hard news stories are based on factual research with significant impacts to the real world. Examples: stories about crimes, politics, business, weather, tragedies, disasters, and sports. News stories in all media share some common elements. Every news story is based on one main idea: the focus. The basic news story structure includes headline and three general parts: the lead, which is the beginning, the body, which is the middle part, and an ending. After you determine the focus of your story, then you can start writing the lead and not graph if needed. But what is exactly the lead and the not graph? We will talk about that in the later part of our discussion. Now, let me present the elements of the basic news story. Headline, lead, the not graph, support for the lead, and then followed by quotes or sound bites for broadcast. There's impact, attribution, context or the background, elaboration, fairness and accuracy, the ending, and lastly, the visuals. A common order for a news story might look like this. You only have headline, lead, the not graph. If a feature lead is used, that means you're writing a feature. And then lead quote or compelling soundbite if available, that's for broadcast. And then supporting facts or impacts. More quotes and comments or soundbites from sources. Then additional information, facts or comments from sources, and then the ending. In a newsroom, it is the editor that gives the headline of a news story. But as a writer, it is always a good practice to write your own headline, and it is up to the editor if it will stay as it is or he or she will change it. Now let's start talking about the headline. The headline is the line on top of the story that tells the reader what the story is about. It usually identifies the focus, especially in online stories, so the reader can decide whether to access the whole story. Online news sites and many newspapers today are using secondary headlines called dead heads, summary lines, or summary blurbs placed under the headline. The two headlines together give the reader a quick overview of the story content. For example, the lead is at the beginning of the story, the hook that tells the reader what the story is about. A good lead entices the reader to continue reading. In a hard news story, and gives the most important details about the event, which is the lead. In another kind of story opposite of the hard news story called soft news, the lead is called a soft lead or a feature lead. In most hard news story, the lead is being called as summary lead because the main points are being summarized. It already answers questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how. The remaining part of the story will give you further details about what, why, and how. Now let's go to the not graph. The not graph is a sentence or paragraph that states the focus or the main point of the story. It will give you the idea what the story is about and why it is newsworthy. When we say newsworthy, that means important to be in the news, or in other words, important for you to know. The not graph should be placed high in the story, generally by the third to fifth paragraph. But if the lead is very compelling or exciting, it could come later. There are times that we have to break the rules for the sake of good writing. On the other hand, a nut graph in a feature story can wait for a few paragraphs to find out the reason for the story. Now let's go to the support for the lead. The lead should be supported or backed up with facts, quotes, statements, and substantiate information in the lead. Now we have the quotes or sound bites. Following the lead, the body of the story should support the focus with information from sources, quotes, or facts that explain the main idea of the story. Quote is usually being used when it is for print, while sound bites when it is for the broadcast news. If you have a good quote or soundbite from a source, it should be placed high in the story after the lead or nut graph.
Unfortunately, not many helpers have the proper caregivers qualifications. What they have is the past experience in their previous job. So to me, that is half the battle won. At least they know what is expected of them. However, the Singapore employers, elderly parent may have very specific requirements of that helper. So they may not fit the bill 100%.
Impact. As a good writer and as much as possible, explain how the news affects readers. The impact sentence or paragraph should answer these questions. What is the significance of the story? What in the story makes the reader care? The impact can be placed in the lead part, nut graph, or in the middle part of the story. Attribution. The attribution answers the following questions. Where did you get the information? Who told you these facts? How can the reader be sure what you say is true? You need to attribute all your quotes with the exact wording of statements said by your sources when you write news to be credible to your readers and to be a reliable source of information. Context or background. In many hard news stories, like crimes or tragedies, it is important to write the background of the story if there are similar stories that have happened in the past. That will give people the idea or history of a specific happening. Many times the context or background can be added at the ending part of the story. Let's say the story is about a fire. Write the background of how many other incidents of this type have occurred in the community recently. In the case of a crime, how many similar crimes have been recorded in the past few months or years? You can give statistics. This will give the reader more ideas to understand how a problem or action occurred. Elaboration. These can be statements, quotes, or more detail to explain what happened, how, and why the problem or action occurred, and reactions to the event. In this part of the story, see other points of view to make sure you have balance and fairness. A story based on one source can be too biased. And talking about fairness, that's the next part, fairness and accuracy. If the story involves conflict, you should always get a comment or comments from both or all sides of an issue. Avoid one-source stories so you will not look like a biased one. Also, this is one of the reasons why it is important to always attribute your sources, including information you got from websites or other internet, including also other news organizations. The endings. The most common style of ending a story is including the following: the future action, and a statement or quote that summarizes but does not repeat the previous information or more elaboration. The visuals. Visual elements such as photographs, charts, and other graphic illustrations are crucial to news presentation in print and online information. They also enrich news releases or media kits in public relations. Photographic illustrations not only help enhance your story to look good, but they also make it easier to read. The next information are some other visual elements used to enhance news stories. Summary blurb, full quote, facts or highlights box, infographic, audio and video for online delivery. Now let's talk shortly about summary blurb. Summary blurb is a paragraph or sentence summarizing the story placed below the headline. Full quote. It is a good quote, might be broken out of the story, placed in larger type, and used as a point of entry to entice the reader. Facts or highlights box. It provides the key points in the story. It can include the dates in a chronology or the main points of a proposal or meeting. It is especially useful for breaking statistics out of the story. Infographic. I'm sure many of you or all of you already know what infographic means. It is a chart, map, graph, or other illustration meant to provide information. The most common type of infographic is called location map, pinpointing the location of an accident, a crime, or any other major news event. Audio and video for online delivery. These are crucial for television news stories, but if you're writing the story for a print publication, you still should think about sound and silent. Remember, this is just an overview of our journalism class. We will still learn a lot more ideas, a lot more terms in the field of news writing for the coming session. So again, my name is Teacher Rhea, and it's nice to talk about news writing or journalism to the class. Thank you, and see you next time.